Joe, welcome to the show. You just started an environmentally friendly skincare brand. Talk to me about Hell on Earth.
Hey Lon. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, Hell on Earth is a new brand. We are getting ready to launch probably in the next few weeks, and this is a product, a brand that started with a friend of mine who is actually it was his brainchild. He's the creative. He's been a creative director in the advertising world for well over 20 years, and he approached me close to a couple years ago now with this concept, this idea of creating an e-commerce brand that was a little bit different, a little bit brash, that really spoke in an honest voice, a bit irreverent, but at the same time with an eye on super high quality products, premium products, in essence, backing up a lot of shit talk with some quality products. And the brand name is called Hell on Earth. And the idea is that Mother Earth has been trying to kill us all since day one. She's out to get us. And we are the brand that is designed and here to provide you with products that'll protect you from her and an angry planet.
Sure, the product itself reminds me a lot of like Liquid Death, the water. It's very
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and we've heard that comparison before. Yeah, our first product, and we will be able to have, ideally a number of products that fit under this category of protection from an angry planet, protection from a Mother Earth. But the first product that we are launching is called the Resistance, and it's a daily facial moisturizer with 100% mineral SPF sunscreen. And yeah, the approach, like you say, is kind of the liquid death of the skincare world. When we were looking at kind of the different markets and the areas that are out there within the skincare world, especially targeted towards men, we kind of found one of two things. Either it was, hey, let's take a women's brand and create it for men, or let's say, hey, we're a men's brand and we're really cool because we have sunscreen that's looks like it's in a bottle of bourbon. And so we just thought, there's got to be something different, something that can talk honestly to men while still having a bit of fun. And that's really what we've done with the Resistance. So it has that liquid death tone. It's all over our website. It's all over our packaging. And we like I said, we're trying to make a really super premium product, but can have fun with it and talk directly to men, at least for this first product, in a way that they haven't been spoken to before.
Yeah, Joe, it's a great answer. So I know a big part and a big role that you play has to do with the strategy of the company itself. So positioning yourself as a premium product, especially for something as, I guess, unorthodox as the liquid death tone in an industry that's all about beauty and like upholding the standard. What are some things that you have implemented within the company? I know you said in a couple weeks it's going to be like officially live, but as to this point, what are some things that you've implemented that you believe are going to put you and give you a good name right off the bat to start with to generate sales?
Okay, well, first of all, we spent quite a bit of time really researching this industry and the product themselves. What's funny is when we first started, my partner Brad and I, we said we're going to be brand forward, and who cares what's in the bottle? We're just going to get a bottle, we're going to fill it with whatever, and our message is going to be so cool that people are going to want to buy it. As we kept going down the road, we realized that's actually not the case at all, and not where we want to be, and not where we landed. So the first step was actually finding the right formula, a super high quality premium formula. And we spent months talking to various suppliers out there that have kind of what we'd call a white label formula. So they have sunscreen formulas or moisturizer formulas or combination formulas that have already gone through FDA testing, have already been approved, have all of their, registrations are up to date. And so that's where we started, was looking at those type of products. And the reality was there were really only a few that met the high standards that we were looking for. And the first step of that was really simply by feel, taking the product, putting it on our face, saying, how does this feel? How does this look? And once we kind of narrowed down a few that we actually liked, then we really started getting deep into the science and into the company that was providing that formula. And I should point out that the reason we went with a white label formula versus developing our own straight from scratch is, this is sunscreen. SPF is a it's an FDA regulated drug. So this is not something you can just take lightly, or you just create and slap it inside a bottle and go. There's a lot of testing. There are a lot of FDA regulations that go along with this. So that would have not only added significant cost creating your own formula, but a significant amount of time, probably in the scope of really an extra year or two, and certainly considerable more cost. And like I said, we want to have a number of products under the Hell on Earth umbrella, and so it was important for us to kind of launch a little more quickly. So we did find a company, ironically, that is located in Illinois, located in Romeoville, a really high quality supplier that is actually very connected within primarily the women's skincare market, and that's not just sunscreen, all kinds of skincare products. But we wanted to focus on a sunscreen product. What we liked about them and what kind of made this unique was, number one, it's an all natural, it's a mineral based sunscreen. This is not a chemical sunscreen. It's mineral based, which already puts it in a category that's separate from most. This is a lotion format. It is not a spray. It's not a stick. It's lotion. It's 100% mineral. Has all of the benefits that you would hope for, as well as with a 43 SPF rating, which is pretty high. With quick side note, we wanted to say on our bottle that it was SPF 1 million, just because it's that strong. But the FDA actually has very strict guidelines, and you have to be exact on your number of what is approved. We also tried to say SPF 666, kind of a little nod to that numbering system with the Hell on Earth. Those are the types of things we want to do and have fun with while we were creating a serious product. But again, that was the legal teams came back and said, nope, can't do that. So we'll say on the bottle SPF 43 is what it is. What's also great about the product is it is a super hydrating moisturizer. It's got anti-aging, antioxidants. It's non-paraben free. It's I mean, there's a whole list, and I really should have that in front of me to read to you. But the bottom line, what I can tell you is we wound up with a super high quality premium product that in our mind competes with the best of the best that are out there. So it was a long road to get to that formula. It's very nice because it goes on smooth, it's non-greasy, it doesn't leave a white cast, which is pretty common with a mineral sunscreen. This company has found a way to work with zinc that's unique, and they're kind of experts in that field, so we're taking advantage of their expertise. So that's kind of the first step and how we got to the actual product itself. And then from there, we say, okay, we know what product we have, but now how are we going to package it? How are we going to create our brand, our logo, our messaging? And then from there, we get into kind of where we're at now, which is how are we going to market the product? But the packaging itself and the branding itself was a long road as well. We first worked with a number of independent designers, and Brad and I expressed, here's our brand ethos, here's our tone, here's what we think it should look like. And we had all kinds of ideas. And we just really struggled to connect with an independent designer that really understood what we were going for. And we were getting kind of generic designs, ones that didn't stand out the way we were hoping, one that didn't really just capture the image of who we're trying to be as a brand. And because this is our first product, first impressions, right? It's key. We've got to come out strong with a beautiful, strong image that people are going to respond to. Um, so we ultimately found a company out of Seattle that is a both a has design chops, advertising chops, as well as a little bit of a venture capital feel to them. They really loved our idea and what we were about, and they said, "Hey, let's trade some work for a little bit of equity in the operation." And ultimately we struck a deal to that effect. So they helped us with our brand design, as well as our kind of our story, our marketing plan, in exchange for discounted rates, as well as a small bit of equity in the company. And that project took, I'd say, roughly about 6 months in working with them to create our logo, which then expands obviously within the whole kind of brand design, and that is, our website, what our packaging will look like. We spent a fair amount of time with them on the packaging, both the outer package, the actual bottle itself, and then the bottle itself, what we really like about it is it's I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I should say, with the idea of the high quality brand, we also wanted to say, hey, we're talking all this shit like we hate Mother Earth and she's out to kill you. But wink, wink, we actually love Earth and we want sustainable products and we want to protect you and we want to protect her. So it was very important to us that our packaging kind of mirrored that concept. So while our packaging is black and dark with some red accents, kind of what you would expect from a Hell type brand, Hell on Earth is the name. We also made very sure that we are using fully recyclable products and packaging. It is a post-consumer recycling package, and as well as a refill pod that can also be recycled. So you're not constantly throwing out your main packaging or even recycling your main packaging. You're simply twisting out the one pod. Once that's done, adding in a refill pod, and those pods can be recycled as well. So that was really important to us. And it took us a while to find the right packaging that kind of fit all of these specifics, all of these guidelines that we were trying to follow. Once we found that packaging, then it was our working with both the package company who was supplying us the bottle, as well as our kind of our designers in Seattle. And then it was a coordinated effort between the three of us, the three organizations, to create the bottle design, the package design, within the specs again now of what the FDA will allow. That's working with our formula supplier as well. So they're kind of at any one time there were 3 or 4 different people from multiple organizations that had to work together in order to come up with the final product that met everybody's specifications. Has to go through legal, has to be approved, has to look right, has to be able to print properly. So it was really kind of a pretty large education as we were going through that process.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. That's a lot of detail there, Joe. I like how all of the parts of the business, whether it's the marketing, the product, the research kind of came together. That's very interesting. I know that you have started other businesses in the past before, and a big a big thing you premised when you were speaking about Hell on Earth is the fact that you guys did a lot of research. I can clearly tell by how you're talking that you guys looked into it, you guys made sure to talk to the right people. Let's say that there's a person out there who wants to start their own business. When you're looking into something, when you're researching, how do you know when there's an opportunity to capitalize on something?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the first for me is kind of just a smell test, like, that anybody would have, which is, do I get excited about this? Does it excite me emotionally? Is this something that I'm going to want to spend a lot of time on? Because if it doesn't, and you're just looking, I mean, there's the one aspect say, oh, oh, I think this could make a lot of money, right? We all think that with most of our ideas, but it is extremely competitive out there, and so I would caution anyone, yes, you want a product that you think is going to make money, but that is a long road to get to that point. So first for me, like I said, is the smell test. Is this a product? Is this an industry? Is this is this something that excites me? Because I know I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time on it and researching, and I don't and I'm probably going to have some pitfalls as well and make some mistakes. And I really have to know going into it, do I have the emotional wherewithal to go down the road and realize as an investment that this may completely fail? That's kind of how I enter every project, is the assumption that it's actually going to fail, and how would I feel having spent months and a lot of time researching and working on a project only to have it fail? Will that be, do I feel like I'm still going to get enough out of it? I'm going to learn enough. I'm going to network enough. I'm going to meet some cool people. I'm going to see things I haven't seen before. If I can do all of those things, and again, with the assumption that it's probably not going to be as successful as I would like, then that's the first step for me, or saying, yeah, I do want to investigate this project. I want to go further with it. Once that's satisfied, then it's a matter of, I mean, look, I'm a bit older than you. I'm 55 in a couple weeks. I've had a number of different kind of careers or different businesses. I'm in different industries. So there's research that I have to do, because generally I'm entering into an industry I don't know anything about. So the fortunate thing is there's so much information available now with the with the internet. I mean, more than you can imagine, more than you can actually digest. So then part of that becomes knowing where to look, how to cut off an informational source that might not be of value, that isn't reputable, that isn't giving you the information you need to take the next step. So you have to be kind of diligent and being willing to, it's fits and starts. I know I'm even within this conversation. That's why, I'm going down a road. I'm telling you one thing and then I'm jumping over to another, but I have to try and keep in mind the broad question that you started with. And can I come back to that? And that's really what you're doing, is you're doing all of this research, because you'll go down a track and you'll learn a little bit about that and say, boy, maybe this is or isn't something I want to do, or something we can bring to the company or not. Let's keep a note here on that. Let's move on to the next. And then it's really being willing to talk to a number of different people, and hopefully, I think most people want to talk about what it is they do. And so if you reach out, whether it's on LinkedIn or you hear from a friend who knows a friend who's in that industry, that you're looking at, just talk to them. Most people are pretty willing, even if it's not from a financial perspective, to just have a conversation with you and let you know their experience within the industry. And we did a lot of that. We met with a lot of designers, even that we ultimately didn't work with. And that helped us, figure out both what we wanted and what we didn't want. We met with, other companies that were in the skincare space and that wanted to work with us, but we didn't necessarily think that their personnel or their products fit with how we wanted to operate. Our personalities, we take what we do seriously and what we're trying to build seriously, but we also want to have a lot of fun while we do it. We want to joke around on that. You're going to be on Zooms, you're going to be on calls. You want to be able to have a rapport. And, the other thing that's really important to me when I'm investigating a project and talking with different people, is responsiveness. Are they going to respond to an email in a timely manner, or a text, or a voicemail? And, if somebody's not getting back to me relatively quickly, um, and if something comes up, that's fine. Just message, "Hey, I can't talk right now," or "Give me a couple days." But when you feel a bit ghosted, then that's like, okay, they're gone. I'm not interested in working with that person, and you move on to the next. So, I think I'm weaving kind of all around again, but uh, the short answer, which I'm clearly not capable of giving, is, make sure it's a project or an industry that you have interest in, and then secondly, just be prepared to do a lot of research in that and a lot of trial and error.
Sure. I think one thing that you mentioned about, being involved in something that you have a passion towards, or maybe something you know you're gonna do for a long time, even if you fail. I think a lot of times, Joe, people might have a little bit of like uninformed optimism. They kind of get into something and they're like, oh, like this is gonna make me a lot of money. This is going to generate me a lot of business. I can't wait to start this. But then once they realize what it really takes, they kind of shy away from it and end up falling off the cliff. And not actually, right? But metaphorically
Mhm.
falling off the cliff, and then their business dies. So when it comes to choosing a product, a service that you're trying to do as a business owner, how do you go about, the uninformed optimism? Obviously, if you're getting into a skincare brand when you had a background of food services, right? So for you,
Mhm.
when you got into it, you might have been optimistic about it, but how did you keep going despite being like, oh my God, these independent contractors aren't good at my marketing. There's no good places for me to sell this stuff, etc.
Well, I think it's really easy, right, to go down the full optimism road, and it's really easy to go full blown negative. And so what I try to do is really stay down the middle. Not get too high, not get too low, not get too excited. Try and manage my expectations of what I think is going to be a success, but also not get too discouraged when the first idea or the first contact or the first revision isn't what you're looking for. So, um, when we spoke, Elon, a few weeks ago before this call, you asked me, what are some of the other things that you're into, maybe not even business wise. And I told you, for me, a huge hobby of mine is golf. And I relate a lot of things in my life back to golf. Now, I didn't
Interesting.
start playing. I'm 55 in a couple weeks. I didn't start playing till I was 30 years old. So I didn't grow up playing. I didn't know the game. I actually resisted it for a number of years and then started playing and became hooked immediately. But the reason I bring it up is you it's a mindset, and you're going to hit a good shot, and you're not going to get rewarded. It's going to have a bad result. You're going to hit a bad shot, and it may get rewarded and turn out to be a great shot. um you can't get too high or too low. You can't get too excited about the good rounds or too upset about the bad rounds. So to me, golf is life, golf is business. So I just try to stay even throughout. I mean, sure, you want to celebrate the small victories. And if you are continually making, the same mistakes, then you want to try and investigate and research, how can I improve? How do I get better at this aspect of my game? How do I get better at this aspect of my business? But I'm not going down a road of full negativity. Like, I can't, I'm never going to be able to do this, nor am I going to go down the road of like, oh, I've got this mastered. You look at the pros, and they will, between, most tournaments are 4 rounds, and even the world's best, they can have 10 to 12 shot difference between different rounds, both positive and negative. So you have to have that kind of that approach with business, with life, in my opinion, that there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and you just kind of want to stay pretty even. Don't throw your clubs, you know?
Hey, I like that. It's a
Yeah.
good metaphor. I
Yeah.
was gonna say, relating back to your golf example, I thought that was very interesting that you said sometimes you'll take good shots and you won't make it. Sometimes you'll take bad shots and you will make it. So using that same metaphor, how can we, I guess, as people in business, maximize the amount of shots we take and get it as close to the hole as possible?
Well, that's also a cool question, and I guess my initial reaction to that is, um, it's really what you're doing on the range, Well, so meaning what you're practicing before you actually go on the course for your round. That's where you're going to have the difference. So again, that goes back to, what's the effort you're putting into your business behind the scenes, not what's but we're not what's front facing to the customers. And you can take that for any industry. For instance, before I was in this industry, I've been in the restaurant business for 15 years, and had had, 3 very successful restaurants, and the amount of time and preparation that it took for all aspects of the business before I opened the doors to guests to come in, that's where we really made the difference. I had a vision, I knew what I wanted it to be like, but it took, 1, I had to find the right people to work with, whether it's the right chef, the right staff, the right accounting teams, the right marketing teams, spending hours going through even the minutia of our recipes to say, hey, I love this dish. This is exactly what we want to serve. But now I have to get into the nitty gritty of the costing of this dish. How do I source the components of this dish to make it economical where I can pay the right amount for it, charge the right amount for it that's going to be acceptable to my guests and still allow me to make money. And you could just extrapolate that detail level into all aspects. So, for me, it was a lot of time spent honing the books, going through each aspect of whether it was, food cost, labor cost, insurance cost, um, alcohol costs, all of those that I had a baseline that I had set because in the end, for me, it was math. It was a formula. This is what I have to hit. This is the revenue I have to hit. This is the expenses that I cannot exceed. And these are all the components that I'm going to have that are making up those expenses. And these are the experiences I want my guests to have. So I had all my variables together. And now it was a matter of creating the formulas or knowing the formulas to make sure that those variables, result in a number that is, comes out well for everyone. So that's what I have really tried to do in any business that I've worked on. It's honestly becomes a lot of just math. And I know that sounds kind of boring, and I'm certainly was not a math major, but it's pretty simple. If you're, this. I mean, if your costs exceed your revenue, then you're done, and or even the threshold of where you need to be. So, and what a lot of people also I think get wrong when looking at any business is they say, oh boy, I mean, look at that company there, or even a high-end restaurant and say, oh man, they're making, they're doing $20 million a year in revenue because I know that they're charging, it's $150 a person and they're packed every night. Doesn't necessarily mean they're making money. We don't know what their
Mhm.
costs are, what their labor costs are. So your actual revenue does not predict your profitability. And many people have a misconception about that. There's a confusion of revenue versus profitability, and looking at the margins in almost any industry. That's really the key. What's the difference between your costs and your expenses and your revenue? And I would tell you that most industries, certainly not all, this is not a rule, but for most industries, you're looking probably at about 5 to 15% net income when all is said and done. So when you add in all of the expenses, everything it takes to run a business, most industries, in my opinion, from my experience, and there are outliers, of course, but you're looking at, about 5% to 15% is where that's the money that you're making. So if you got a restaurant that's doing $10 million a year in sales, I guarantee you, they're not making millions of dollars. They're, at best, and that's, I'm using a high example, 10 million is pretty good in sales, but they're probably in profitability looking at 500 grand, a million at best. Um, I know that's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money when you compare how much money came in. And you can look at that you can boil that down. So if you're selling $1,000 worth of goods and you're pretty excited, hey, I just sold $1,000 today. Most likely, and from my experience, you probably made about 50 to 100 bucks, maybe 150 after you count in all the expenses that it takes to run the business.
Sure. Yeah, that's very interesting. That's something that I think I see a lot in today's day and age. Things that like as far as like online sales go, e-commerce. I know when it's an actual physical product as opposed to something that might be a digital product, it's a lot different of margins. But it's interesting because I know in the food industry, Joe, I have a lot of respect for you because I've never imagined myself in the food industry. It seems a little too difficult for me. But um, it's interesting how I guess the perception that people have of okay, here's the top line, but then people don't think about the bottom line and okay, minus labor costs, minus all this, etc. My last question to you is you talked a lot about people that you were teaming up with. You said you had people help you with your products, with your marketing, with your sales in the past and probably in the future as well. I know you actually had a business with your wife as well. So I wanted to ask, how do you choose a good business partner? Because I think a lot of people have a misconception that a partner will screw everything up for you.
Boy, I mean, that's a loaded question because I've had both sides of the experience. I mean, I've had my very first business that I was involved in on my own when I wasn't working for someone else. The first business that I created was actually a custom audio video business. We were doing home theaters and whole house audio video systems and automations. And this is back in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s where there was a big housing boom. We were wiring homes from the ground up. We were installing all of the electronics, creating automation before it was as easy as it is now with an iPhone. I mean, you just didn't have those things. You didn't have Sonos. You didn't have iPhones. It was a very different environment at that time. And I partnered with someone. I really had a very good understanding of all of the how all of the audio video components work together, the computer programming side of it, that the sales portion of it, that was where I focused in communicating with the clients, doing the programming on the back end, managing our team of installers, the detail on creating a sales order and then the relationships with the vendors to get all of the gear needed for a project. I mean, those details and those relationships, that was my strength. Where I had a big weakness, you didn't want to put any physical tools in my hand. You didn't want me being the guy hanging the TV, me being the guy opening your wall and running wires through the wall. So I found people that, that were experts in that and ultimately partnered with somebody who was really good at that. And we became 50-50 partners. We created a successful business. We had done some basic things. We had an operating agreement, a legal agreement, but I didn't study that agreement and the responsibilities within that agreement closely enough. And even though I had a really good relationship with this person, their life their life changed, their needs, their desires, where they wanted to go in life and with the business changed, primarily because they got married and their focus then and where they wanted to go changed, which is fine. There's no problem with that. But um, I got burnt. They wound up taking money from the company to use personally, which because the operating agreement wasn't, I'd say, buttoned up enough. There wasn't much I could do about that other than just take the loss and move on my own. So that's the one side where I've been burned. Not every partnership that I've had has been, successful. So the first part of it, of when you choose any partner, I always, from that moment on, as I was investigating other projects or creating new projects with partners, I always created a legal agreement and worked with them, but also had each of us had independent counsel on creating and agreeing to that operating agreement. And they may have been my best friend, or like I said, and so you mentioned in a certain case, it was my wife as a partner. But I said, you have to assume, and I don't mean this in a negative way or anything against you, whoever I'm working with at that point. But we have to assume that this is going to go south, that the business is not either not going to work or our partnership isn't going to work. So we need to draft this agreement in a form for all the worst case scenario, kind of almost like a prenup agreement when you're getting married. Nobody goes into marriage thinking they're not going to make it, but you want to protect yourself and protect your partner. I mean, that's, you're going at it with best intentions that we want this to work. But if it doesn't, and we absolutely hate each other and we need to move on, how do we do that so both of us can move on without hurting the business, without hurting other people, and with both of us getting what we believe is fair. So to me, that's been a crucial step moving forward with any of the businesses I've been involved with, of going through that exercise and creating an operating agreement and being fully transparent. And that can be kind of tricky because you're not trying to pull anything over. I mean, it's right there in black and white. And you may be at that time, you're excited, you're building a business, and you may be kind of in your mind almost best friends with this person. You could never imagine it going south. But you have to take that step at the beginning to say, let's assume we hate each other. 6 months down the road, 6 years, 10 years, what do we do then? And how do we split and make sure that nobody gets hurt? So that's been crucial to all of the partnerships I've had since learning kind of the hard way in my first partnership.
Sure. So, a very quick follow up question to my last question, Joe. I was going to say, because it's very interesting to me, how do you bring up that conversation of wanting to have a contract with somebody without it deteriorating your relationship or, I guess, unconsciously implying that, hey, I don't trust you?
That's fair. I mean, I think first of all, it depends on the project. It depends on, for me, it's pretty easy. I mean, one, I'm generally not just investing my time in a project, but I'm investing at least some of my capital. So, one, I say, and two, I have been burned before. So it is simply
Sure.
being honest and transparent, which I think is all you want to be in any relationship. And so, business relationship, of course. So, say, hey, look, Elon, you and I are going to start a business together. I think you're awesome. I think you have the skills that I need. I think your idea is great. Let's go into this. But I got to tell you, I want to work on this and be fully transparent that we're going to need to sit down and come up with an agreement that is fair for me as well as is fair for you. If I just came in and said, "Well, these are all my conditions," then yeah, you're probably going to run and you should be fearful. But if I'm saying, "Hey, I'm the one I'm investing money, you're investing money, I'm investing time, you're investing time. Let's try and create an agreement that is going to be beneficial for both of us. So I don't want you to take this personally, but this is business, and if you do take it personally right at the beginning and you can't see through to that later step, then I don't think you necessarily are going to have the thick skin that is needed to get through some of the challenges you're going to face either directly as a partner or through the business world in general, because it's just not easy. It generally doesn't work out the way you think it is, and you have to pivot and you have to figure out, okay, here's a brick wall that I came up with, and how am I going to get to the next one? I'll tell you real quick, and I know we're probably getting close on time, but for instance, right now, as I'm in this e-commerce world creating this new brand, it's been a hell of a learning curve for me because it's new to me. I'm not even a guy that's on social media personally. I don't really use it much. And so I'm learning that world. And as we go through and we set up, say, set up advertising through Meta, through Facebook or Instagram, and simply setting up the mechanisms to do that. Well, you have different partnerships and different websites that you may have to engage and sign up with that are going to allow you to do the things that you need to do. You're going to have a tutorial that says, do this, then this, based on how that website operates. That website 6 months from now is probably going to change their interface. And now what before was step 1, 2, and 3 located on these pages is now going to be step 3, 5, and 9 located on completely different pages. So you're going to be watching and you say, wait, this moved. And it's really easy to just say, you know what, this is all too hard. I can't do it. I give up. I'm going to hire somebody else to figure it out. Um, it's those same brick walls where you have to say, okay, I know that the environment is always going to be changing and I'm ready for that. And that's the challenge of having the perseverance to do the research, find out how did that change? Where do I need to go now? Um, if it was just this simple plug and play, do step one, step two, step three. I mean, I guess everybody would be successful. It'd be like pluribus. You watching this where everybody's at peace, everybody's happy, but doesn't really work that way.
Sure. Joe, dude, you're awesome, man. Where can people find you at? Any links, hell on earth, anything you want to link?
I mean, like I said, I'm the worst at social media, which I got to get better at. But I appreciate the time, the compliment. Right now, you can the best way to reach us is take a look at our website, which is simply helon.earth, or feel free to shoot me an email at joe@helon.earth. And like I said, if I don't respond to you in a few days, then you can give me some grief because that makes me just extremely hypocritical.
Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you, Elon.